Problem 1 is mostly on worksheet design. For problem 1 on your practice exam, we're supposed to develop a worksheet for new product sales. The instructions are, for a new product, sales volume in the first year is estimated to be 80,000 units and is projected to grow at a rate of 4% per year. The selling price is $12 and will increase by 50 cents each year. Per unit variable costs are $3 and annual fixed costs of $400,000. Per unit costs are expected to increase 5% per year. Fixed costs are expected to increase 8% per year. We're supposed to develop a spreadsheet model to calculate the net present value of profit over a 3-year period, assuming a 4% discount rate. So notice I've already put in all the assumptions given in the problem, so we're going to make sure that for good worksheet design, we're only going to use formulas and cell references down here. If you find yourself typing 80,000 or 4% or 12, just think what happens if that number changes. So we're just going to input all of our initial volumes. So I'm going to make a cell reference equals and for year 1 for the sales quantity in cell B12 and click on cell B1, that initial sales volume. So if the amount in cell B1 changes, the sale quantity for year 1 will also change. I will similarly make references to the sales price. So in cell B13, I'll type equals and click on cell B3. In cell B14, I'll type an equal sign and click on our initial variable cost, cell B5. And finally, for the fixed cost, type an equal sign and click on the initial fixed cost, $400,000, in cell B7. Now I will put in all of my growth rates. So to put in the growth rate, you want to multiply the value by 1 plus the growth rate to get the new value. So here for year 2, in the sales quantity, I want to take the year 1 sales quantity and multiply it by 1 plus the growth rate for the sales volume. But what I want to make sure is I'm going to press my F4 key on my keyboard to turn that into an absolute cell reference. So when I copy that to year 3, I'll use the exact same annual growth rate. Not so important for 1 year, but you may be copying it out for 10, 15, or 20 years. So I hit enter, and what I will do is I will copy all the year 2 formulas to year 3 in one fell swoop. So now let's do the same thing for the sales price. So the sales price starts off at 12, but it increases by an amount rather than a percentage, so we just have to add the amount of the increase, the annual price growth amount, and again we have to lock that down. We have to turn that into an absolute cell reference with the F4 to make sure that in year 3 we point to the same growth amount of 50 cents. So I hit enter. For my variable cost, I take my year 1 variable cost and I multiply that by, open the parentheses, 1 plus the growth rate for the variable cost. And once again, we want to make sure that we use the same growth rate in year 3. So I'm going to use my F4 key on my keyboard to turn that into an absolute cell reference. Close up my parentheses, and then do exactly the same thing for the fixed cost. So in cell C15, I'm going to take my year 1 fixed cost and multiply that by, open parentheses, 1 plus the growth rate. Cell B8, and turn B8 into an absolute cell reference by hitting that F4 key on my keyboard. Close up the parentheses, and I've now finished all of my year 2 formulas. I can now, because I used those absolute cell references, I can now take my year 2 and copy those formulas out to year 3 And if you're ever concerned that the formula isn't correct, just pick a random cell and double click it, and it will show you the cells that are involved in the formula. So it does look like in each case I'm multiplying by the correct amounts. Now let's put in our sales information. So our sales revenue is going to be our sales quantity multiplied by our sales price. And in year one, we want to use year one numbers, but in year two, we want to use year two numbers. So I will tell Excel for year one to take the sales quantity, multiply that by the sales price. But again, I'm going to get all of my year one formulas and then copy year one to year two and year three. Now to calculate my total variable cost, I'm going to take the sales quantity, but now instead multiply that by the variable cost per unit. So my total variable cost would be B12 multiplied by B14. Now my contribution margin is my sales revenue subtracting my variable cost. So I will take B17 and subtract B18. My fixed cost is just given in cell B15. So I'll type an equal sign, click on cell B15 to pick up all the different fixed costs over the 3-year period. And then finally, my operating income is calculated as my contribution margin, cell B19, minus my fixed cost, cell B20. Hit enter to accept the formulas. To make it look a little bit more like the subtotals, I'm going to underline. So I'll click home and then click the underline button to underline the total variable cost. And then I will underline the total fixed cost as well. So it looks a little bit more like a sum. Now I'm going to select all of those formulas and just copy them out to years 2 and years 3. Now to take my net present value, all I need are two things. I need a discount rate, which is given here in cell B9, and I need my cash flows, which are in B21 to D21. So I'm going to click in cell B23 where I'm going to input my net present value, and I'm going to click on Formulas, Financial, and NPV for net present value. My rate is cell B9, the discount rate for the net present value. So I'm going to use the 4%, but again, if it changes, we can just change cell B9 and the net present value will update automatically. And then in our values, we're going to click cell B21 and select the range B21 to D21. Notice we have a net present value of $958,321.57, which allows us to compare this net present value to other potential investments.